They came with badges, a bulldozer, and a lie, tearing down Nathan Wallace's fully legal garage like they owned the place. These fake HOA enforcers had been scamming homeowners for months, destroying property and extorting money without consequence. But what they didn't know, their latest victim wasn't just any homeowner, he was the mayor. And the moment the sirens roared in, their entire scheme collapsed like the garage they just demolished. Nathan Wallace had never been this furious in his entire life. The ground beneath him shook as the bulldozer's engine roared, its steel blade tearing through brick and wood like they were nothing more than paper. The sickening crunch of destruction filled the air, so loud it rattled the windows of every house on the street. Nathan stood frozen on his porch for a split second, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. His garage, his Mustang, his perfectly legal, fully permitted, custom-built garage was gone. And inside it, his pride and joy, the 1967 Mustang Fastback, painted a flawless midnight blue, a car he had spent years restoring, a car that carried more history than some people's entire family trees, was now being ripped apart, crushed under the weight of a machine that had no business being there. The screech of metal on metal sent a spike of pure rage through Nathan's chest, his fists clenching so tight that his nails nearly broke skin. And then, as if the situation wasn't already insane enough, he saw them. 3 men, standing just beyond the chaos, arms crossed, watching like they had just won some kind of twisted victory. They wore identical black uniforms, the bold white letters HOA emblazoned across their chests. The leader, short, stocky, with a balding head that reflected the morning sun, had a smug, self-satisfied smirk plastered across his face. Nathan's vision blurred at the edges. Who the hell were these guys? He stormed forward, shoving past his neighbor, Mrs. Hawthorne, who stood on the sidewalk clutching her chest in horror. His heart was pounding, his blood boiled. "What the hell is this?" he barked, his voice cutting through the deafening crash of falling debris. The stocky man, Nathan immediately labeled him Mustache, turned to face him, exuding the kind of casual arrogance that only came from getting away with things for far too long. "HOA enforcement," Mustache said smoothly, flipping out a cheap plastic badge like it actually meant something. Nathan blinked. "HOA? What HOA?" He had bought this house specifically because it was outside of any HOA's jurisdiction. No ridiculous rules about fence heights, no surprise fines, no corrupt neighborhood overlords on a power trip. And yet, here they were, dressed like discount mall cops, demolishing his damn property. Nathan took a slow, controlled breath, his instincts screaming at him to stay calm, to think. He had handled tough situations before. But this was madness. "This isn't an HOA neighborhood," he said, his voice low, sharp, each syllable carrying the weight of an unspoken warning. Mustache shrugged, his smug grin widening. "It is now." And then, the bastard had the nerve to snap his fingers at the bulldozer operator like he was ordering a dog. "Keep going." Nathan barely had time to react before the bulldozer's steel blade slammed forward again, grinding down into what was left of his Mustang, the final, heart-wrenching scream of metal echoing through the neighborhood. The rage hit him like a freight train. His body went rigid, his fists tightened, his pulse hammered in his ears. These morons, these fraudulent, power-hungry con artists. They had no idea who they were messing with. They had just demolished the garage of the freaking mayor. Nathan didn't move, didn't yell, didn't lunge forward, even though every instinct in his body screamed at him to wipe that smug grin off Mustache's face. Instead, he reached into his pocket. Slow, controlled, like he had all the time in the world. Mustache chuckled, mistaking Nathan's composure for weakness. "Oh, go ahead." He gestured lazily toward the ruined garage, where the bulldozer's engine still rumbled, gears grinding as it settled in place. "Call the cops. Won't change anything. We've got jurisdiction here." Nathan didn't call the cops. He called City Hall. A crisp, professional voice answered almost instantly. "Mayor Wallace?" Nathan didn't blink. "Put me through to the chief of police." There was a pause, not hesitation, just a quick relay of information, before a sharp click sounded over the speaker. Then came the gravelly voice of Chief Morgan, a man who had been in law enforcement longer than Nathan had been in politics. "Mayor?" Nathan's voice was calm but lethal, We have a situation, and I need squad cars here. Now. The temperature dropped. Not literally, but Nathan could feel the shift in the air. Mustache's grin flickered just for a second. Blondie, the lanky one standing to his right, visibly tensed, shifting from foot to foot like a cornered animal. Beard, the third guy, took an unconscious step back, his eyes darting toward the truck parked at the curb. But Mustache? He doubled down. Doesn't matter, he snapped, trying to regain control of the situation. You're in violation of HOA guidelines. This structure was non-compliant. Nathan tilted his head, studying him like an insect under a magnifying glass. Show me the official paperwork, he said smoothly. Silence. Mustache's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Blondie's hands were visibly sweating now, his fingers twitching like he was debating whether to bolt or beg. Beard? He was already halfway to the truck, moving in slow, careful steps, like he thought no one would notice. Nathan let the silence stretch, let the panic settle in their eyes, then... You don't have any paperwork, he said. His voice was calm, almost bored, like he was stating a scientific fact. And then he said the words that sent a shockwave through the group. Because you're frauds. The moment he said it, the air cracked with something else, a sound far more satisfying. Sirens. Not just one, multiple. A split second later, 3 squad cars came screaming around the corner, red and blue lights flashing so brightly that the entire block was bathed in color. Tires screeched as they skidded to a stop in front of Nathan's house. Doors flew open. Uniformed officers stepped out, and suddenly, the fake HOA cops didn't look so confident anymore. Mustache's face crumbled. Blondie looked like he was about to throw up. And Beard? Beard ran. Bad idea. The second his foot hit the pavement, one of the officers, a solid, no-nonsense guy built like a brick wall, was already on him. 2 strides, 1 tackle, and Beard went down hard, hitting the grass with a grunt as the officer pinned him face down and snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. Blondie flinched. Mustache stood paralyzed, his body caught between fight and flight. Nathan folded his arms, watching as officers approached the 2 remaining men. Looks like your jurisdiction just got revoked, he said coolly. Mustache twitched, his fists clenching at his sides, his entire carefully crafted power trip crumbling around him. You can't do this, he sputtered, his voice desperate now. This is a misunderstanding. We were just... The officer closest to him, a woman with steel-gray eyes who looked like she had no patience for nonsense, cut him off. Let me guess, she said flatly. You were just enforcing HOA policy in a non-HOA neighborhood? She grabbed Mustache by the arm and spun him around. Handcuffs clicked into place. Blondie let out a whimper. Nathan exhaled slowly, taking in the scene before him. The bulldozer silent now, its damage already done. His garage, gone. His car, totaled. And yet, he smiled, because these guys, they thought they had power. They thought they could pull a con on the wrong homeowner, throw their weight around like they were some kind of neighborhood kings. They thought they could get away with it. But instead, they had just destroyed the garage of the freaking mayor. Before the fake HOA enforcers could even think about running, chaos erupted. 2 officers tackled Beard mid-sprint, sending him crashing into the lawn with a heavy thud. He hit the ground hard, gasping for air, his hands immediately yanked behind his back as cuffs snapped shut around his wrists. His attempt to escape had lasted all of 3 seconds. Blondie barely even twitched. He just stood frozen, hands trembling in the air, his face pale as a ghost, like he was still processing how fast their little power trip had come crashing down. But Mustache? Mustache still thought he was untouchable. Even as police lights flashed across his face, even as his entire scam collapsed around him, even as Beard groaned from the ground, and Blondie looked 1 breath away from passing out, Mustache still believed he could talk his way out of this. His shoulders squared, his cheap plastic badge still pinned to his chest, like it meant something, and his jaw locked in stubborn defiance. He turned to Nathan, eyes narrowing. You're making a mistake, he growled, like this was his arrest to negotiate. Nathan didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't even bother acknowledging the stupidity of that statement. He just took 1 step closer, slow, deliberate. And then he spoke. Cold, sharp, final. You demolished city property. Mustache's nostrils flared. His bravado cracked just a little. Nathan tilted his head slightly. You used a fraudulent HOA to scam homeowners. A bead of sweat rolled down Mustache's temple. Nathan's voice didn't rise. It didn't waver. It didn't need to. You destroyed a vehicle inside private property. Another step closer. The tension in Mustache's jaw twitched. His fake confidence shrunk under Nathan's deadly calm stare. And then, the final blow. Nathan's voice dropped even lower, carrying the full weight of absolute authority. And you did it, he said, to the mayor. Silence. Complete. Deafening. The exact moment Mustache realized he was done, his mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Nothing. Because there was nothing left to say. Nathan held the silence, watching as Mustache's false sense of power crumbled in real time. Then, a uniformed officer grabbed Mustache's wrist and yanked his arms behind his back. The handcuffs snapped on, tight. Mustache grunted in surprise, wincing as the officer secured his wrists. You're under arrest, the cop said, voice firm and unwavering, for criminal property destruction, for impersonating a city official, for felony fraud. Each charge landed like a hammer. Nathan exhaled slowly, the tension finally breaking as he watched the last of the scammers get hauled toward the squad cars. But this wasn't enough. Nathan knew these men hadn't just targeted him. They had been doing this for months. They had tricked hundreds of homeowners, stealing property, issuing fake violations, bullying people into paying ridiculous fees. And when that didn't work, they sent in the bulldozers. People had lost homes, lost years of savings. And these frauds had done it all with smug grins on their faces, thinking no one could stop them. They thought they could bulldoze their way through life, destroy anything in their path, and never face consequences. But Nathan was about to make sure they never recovered, because this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The courthouse was a circus. News vans lined the streets, cameras rolling, reporters pushing microphones toward anyone willing to comment. The case had made national headlines. Fake HOA scammers caught in the act. Mayor brings down corrupt homeowners association fraudsters. Justice served in HOA demolition scheme. Inside, the courtroom was packed, every seat taken. Homeowners who had been scammed, families who had lost thousands, neighbors who had watched their properties get torn apart for phony violations. Nathan sat in the front row, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. This was it, the final moment. At the bench, the judge flipped through the thick sentencing documents, her face unreadable as she scanned the list of charges. Fraud, criminal property destruction, impersonating a city official, extortion, theft by deception. The list went on and on. Nathan barely moved. Across the room, Mustache, Blondie, and Beard sat at the defense table, their expensive suits doing nothing to mask their panic. Mustache's foot bounced uncontrollably under the table. Blondie looked like he was about to be sick. Beard just stared at the floor, hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles were white. They knew what was coming. And then, the verdict dropped. 15 years. Each. Silence. For half a second, it was like the entire room had stopped breathing. Then, chaos, gasps, whispers. A collective wave of shock rippling through the courtroom. The scammers collapsed in their seats, their faces drained of color as the full weight of reality hit them. Blondie blinked rapidly, like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. Beard's hands shook as he ran them down his face. And Mustache snapped. He lunged forward, slamming his hands on the table, his voice high-pitched and desperate. This is insane. We had authority. The judge didn't even look up. You stole thousands, she said, her tone sharp. You destroyed homes. You preyed on people who didn't know better. You operated under false authority, intimidated homeowners, and used brute force to take what wasn't yours. Her gavel came down. Bailiff. The end. 2 uniformed officers stepped forward. The clink of handcuffs echoed as they locked Mustache's wrists first. He struggled, wild-eyed, panicking, but the officers didn't hesitate. Blondie was next. His hands shook so badly the officer had to steady him just to get the cuffs on. Beard didn't even fight it. He just lowered his head. Nathan? Nathan just leaned back in his chair, and he felt nothing but satisfaction. Because this wasn't just about him. This was about every single homeowner these frauds had scammed. Every senior citizen they had tricked into paying bogus fees. Every family they had extorted. Every person who had felt powerless against their fake authority. And now they were the powerless ones. As they were dragged away, Nathan didn't feel an ounce of sympathy, only justice.